The following show is dedicated to Mia Park and Barbara Yang. The views expressed on the following show may not be those of the hosts, guests, or WSPN Skidmore Radio. Talk Saratoga is produced by Saratoga Broadcasting Incorporated and may not be reproduced in part or in whole unless expressed written approval is given. Now, here are the hosts of Talk Saratoga, Rick Thompson and a Saratoga All-Star.
Good morning and welcome to Talk Saratoga. I'm your host, Rick Thompson, and you're listening to the show on WSPN 91.1 FM Skidmore Radio. If you'd like to give a call during any portion of the show, you can do that by calling 518-580-5783, 580-5783. I want to welcome a great guest this morning. We've got a lot to talk about, and Martha is the Executive Director of Gateway House of Peace, and I'd like to introduce Martha Hasslacher. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning, Rick. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. And, this is a tough subject to talk about for a lot of people and families, but it's one that really needs to be discussed and maybe have some sort of a plan in. Now, we've got a great template here that we're going to get into later, and it's awesome. But first of all, I want to have you talk about yourself and how you became involved in the Gateway House of Peace.
All right, thank you. So I've had a background in nonprofit work, and so that's where my heart is, the work that makes the communities function. So coming to Gateway House after having an experience with my own family and hospice and finding out that they had a need for a director who had a strategic thinking plan. So I came to Gateway House in 2022, and as you know, 2020 was a mess, and
terrible.
Yet the need didn't end and Gateway House didn't close. So we have a mission to provide safe, comfortable, caring residence for terminally ill patients, and in a home, not a facility. And we do that so that we can provide a peaceful, healing place to care for 2 terminally ill patients and their families in the last 3 months of their life. So it's the in-between place. If you don't have a home or you don't want to be in the hospital, but you need that care, we provide free 24-hour care from skilled, people who are invested in this work.
We've talked about this the last time you were on, and, just now I, realized that your mom had the same problem, that died from the same problem I did, but both my parents were in hospice. My mom had a pulmonary fibrosis and my dad had cancer. And it's a wonderful, wonderful way of bringing peace to the person and the family.
Yes, the social model comfort care home, I think, is unique in our region especially. There are only 8 beds in a 10 or 12 county region. So that need is always there. When the family gets to the point where they have life to live, right? Work, job, school, kids, and yet they have a loved one that needs 24-hour care. The community loses something like $4,500 for one caregiver stepping out to care for a loved one. And the community loses 5,600 hours over the course of an extreme illness. That's a lot of loss.
Yeah, and I mean, it's hard on the family, too.
Yeah.
We were fortunate that they have a wonderful hospice in Gloversville. And now, normally, my mom was in for quite a while. My father, I think, was in for maybe 3 weeks. And that's probably I mean, the longest of, I mean, my mother was unusual. Most people are in for a short amount of time, correct? I mean,
It is correct. And I'm always wrestling with that question of when does this extra level of care become necessary? Do we short ourselves when we say we're not ready for palliative care? So the hospice model, the philosophy, is to allow people to live as best they can with a debilitating disease. And yet, the mindset is that, oh, hospice is when you go to die. So you lose some of that support you could have.
Right. It's we always look at things, organizations, without really delving into what they are. I'll give you just an example, and nowhere near this, but my father had worked for BOCES in Fulton County. Now, that was a school that was thought of to be for kids that couldn't make it in high school and had gotten a bad rep. But it really was a trade school where kids who may not have been strong in math or science could learn a job, electricity, carpentry, whatever, and have a profession and be on their own, have their own business, or work for somebody else. I think it's the same way with hospice. You know, people have misconceptions of what it's for. I had an uncle who had cancer, and my aunt was a registered nurse, was an RN, and she had retired and took care of him at home, which was very difficult. But hospice came in and would see him, I can't remember how often, and the priest would come in once a week. And it just made him, I think, last longer because he was at home.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
Do you find that most people would rather be at home rather than in a facility?
If one were to ask, and those are the kinds of conversations you want to have before it's a crisis, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to ask, where are people most comfortable, that's what they're going to answer. I want to be at home. This is what I know. These are where my things are, my people are. And that's what their desire is.
Yeah. I told you before the show started, I had a friend and who had said, who was sick, and they said, I'm not afraid to die, but I don't want to die.
Yeah.
And I think that's most people. You never want to die. I mean,
no, generally, even at our most despondent, right, when we really are feeling the weight of all the things, it's because we're unhappy that we feel that weight.
Yeah.
And so anything that we as a community can do to bring hope and entertainment or engagement into their lives, it becomes more palliative, more life.
Yeah, or even taking the worry from them and focusing whatever energy they have on things that make them feel better.
Sure, exactly.
You know, I just...
Yep.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, you talked about your facility, and do you find that you would rather have, if you had the choice, would rather have a larger facility with more beds or go into homes?
Well, that's a very good question, and we wrestle with that because, for one reason, I'd like to be able to serve more people, right? Mm-hmm. And because I have probably 5 or 6 open referrals right now where people would like to come because they can't manage it. But our house is a house. It has a kitchen, a living room, a dining room. It's designed to be as if it were a home away from home. And you can't do that in a facility.
No.
And hospice can't do that themselves. They only have 3 or 4 hours a week where they can do the work that we do. We supplement that. We partner with them. We aren't hospice. And there's no bill. There's no insurance. There's no expense. We survive entirely on donations, or fundraisers.
Really?
Yes.
That's amazing.
It always surprises people. They say, well, wait a minute, I thought you were hospice. Well, we're not, in that we follow their philosophy,
Right.
and their patients are our residents. They do the medical, so they get the insurance billing. We do everything else.
That's amazing.
And there are people in the community that recognize that that's valuable.
Oh, most definitely, because I think most people worry about healthcare and insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And for someone not to have to worry about that,
it's a big
at
relief.
The end
Yep.
days, oh my gosh.
That's what you
yeah.
were saying, to give someone a relief from worry. So
Yeah.
they do that. We do that.
Really. And you've got a great care management team.
We do.
Your website is fantastic, by the way. You can find out so much information there and so much direction. And I want to give the address. It's gatewayhouseofpeace.org. And, go on there if you need any information. They have a wonderful plan we're going to talk about later because there's quite a bit to talk about on planning and what to do. We talked about how long can someone stay in there. What is your admission? What's the criteria for admission?
Anyone who's under the hospice care can come to our facility. That then we look at, can we care for them? Are they in great need? We balance the needs of the individual with the needs of the community, and then our ability to help them. So once they're on hospice or qualified for hospice, we get a referral that gives us a basic understanding of their medical needs. Mm-hmm. And then they come to the house, and we will give them a room, and we will assist them with meals and all those little tasks that make a life palatable, right?
Well, yeah, and I have to tell you, in the case of my parents, they treated the family great, but the patient is their ultimate care.
They
and
are.
They will do anything to make the patient comfortable and whatever they want.
Right.
It's
and
amazing.
That's our philosophy, especially, is that as you lose some of your advocacy, right, some of your ability to do things or go places, we try and give them as much agency as possible. If you want dinner at 3 a.m., that's what you get. And everything is at their needs, whatever makes them comfortable, pain-free, and joyful.
Yeah. I mean, if you've never been exposed to that, you get a sense of, you get a different sense in end-of-life care because, and I say this to you, and I'm sure a lot of people do, the caregivers are angels. They really are. They dedicate their life for that patient and taking care of the family as best they can. But my parents were like taken so they were well cared for at every whim, and it's just amazing. It really is the work they do.
We have paid staff. We also have volunteers, and I'm always in awe of the reasons that the volunteers come. And we can talk a little later, but one volunteer comes to mind when you talk about that real connection. She came because she lost her husband during COVID, and she couldn't be with him. So she comes and she sits, and she talks to the family, and she says, no one ever dies alone here. They always have someone with them.
And that's so important.
And it makes her feel better.
Yeah. I mean, I know being laid up from surgeries, when you're not around people, terrible. And I work for, I drive a small school bus for Upstate Transit. And when I have surgery, the owner of the company knows that, and I'm out for a couple months, I have to be around people. So he has me come in the office and do some office work just to be around people and talk, because I think the fear of being alone is a terrible thing.
We're not designed to be on our own.
No. And I think that's what 2020, I'll tell you, it changed the world. It changed people, the way you think. It affected so many lives. We were shut down for so long. I don't know if that was really necessary for that long, but it did harm, I think, a generation,
I think in a lot of ways we're still recovering.
Yeah.
And socially, we still are finding our way.
Yep. I had a good friend of mine was a priest, and he ended up being in the Teresian house down in Albany, and I would go and visit him every Sunday, and he liked Italian subs, so I would bring I'd bring down for lunch, and we'd sit and have lunch, and he ended up making me his healthcare proxy because he had a sister that lived in New York. That was the only family he had. Besides, there were a couple priests that were friends of his, so they had the other big jobs. But I would visit him every Sunday, and when COVID came, and I couldn't go down to see him, I would go down and maybe stand outside the window just to say hi, because it had to be terrible for patients,
right?
Or people like you had said that were dying, not to have anybody around, and I just think that added to the problem,
Right. I mean, life continues and death keeps coming.
Oh, yeah.
So it's sort of a way for us to look at how do we live while people are dying, and how do we wrap our minds around it? What do we do to combat it?
Right.
As you said, your friend is not afraid to die, but she's not ready. She doesn't want to. And I think a lot of us find ourselves, unless it's a traumatic, tragic accident, we find ourselves dealing with that in our own lives or in the lives of our loved ones.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's part of life, but it's a part of life you don't want to think about.
Right.
And you do have to think about it, or your family has to think about it. You have to have a plan, and I think, what we'll talk about a little later is it's a wonderful thing. I don't know who put that together, but we'll get into it. It's just a great thing for families to have, and so that they can be ready if something happens. Now, you also, you're unable to provide medical care, but you have people that can come in and do that?
Well, we are not in charge of their medical orders or their prescriptions. Hospice orders all that as if you were in your own home. Mm-hmm. Our staff are trained and equipped to take on that delivery. They bring it to you when the time comes. They will make sure that you have what you need. They will advocate for you if it's not enough or if you're having an adverse reaction. So we do the care, but we're not in charge of it.
Okay. And obviously, your admissions are not based on age.
They're not based,
color,
right. Yep, that's it.
Or ethnic background, sexual orientation, or religious beliefs. Not knowing what clientele passes through, do you see younger people?
Primarily, the age of our residents are probably 60 and older, and yet we had a 31-year-old Marine with bone cancer come in earlier this year, and he was already on hospice. He was fearful that the end would be painful and traumatic, and he wanted to save his two young children from having to experience that. So when he came to our house, he thought death was imminent, right? You're on hospice, you're going to die.
Yeah.
And as it turned out, we were able to get his pain meds regulated, and he came to the decision that he had life left to live. And so he when he was no longer afraid of pain being unmanageable, he says, "Oh, I can go home and be with my children for however long I have." So he went back home for Easter.
Oh, that's great.
I don't, he's still going to die.
Right.
But it was a gift that we gave him, this ability to live now while he could.
Yeah, I think, you have the philosophy to help people get to that point where if they hadn't had that from you, who knows what would have happened, And so with those criteria in mind, you have obviously a triage procedure.
Sure. We look at, first of all, we start with whether or not they have 3 months or less. And of course, that's always a guess, right?
Sure.
But that's where we start because of this donor sponsoring. We want to give our help to as many people as we can.
Sure.
And then if people are ready, willing, and wanting to come to our house, we're certainly not going to force someone. If they don't want to come, then good for them that they can be elsewhere.
Sure.
If, on the other hand, they have a great medical need that is beyond our capabilities, because we're not all nurses, we have no machines there. It's a house just like yours. And so some of the things we can't necessarily do and do it effectively. So when we have to do that evaluation, we look at who has the greatest need, who can we help, and then if all things are equal, who's from our community, because we are a comfort care home supported by the community.
Okay. And how far, when we say community, what is the community?
Well, community hospice serves 5 counties, so that tells you that. And we don't ever say no to anyone, even if they're from outside that area. Maybe they have family or friends in Ballston Spa or Saratoga County, or maybe they just don't have anywhere else to go. If we have the capacity to help, then they're able to come.
Okay. You ever do any referrals to other area hospice, like if you haven't got any way, somebody can't be home and you don't have the space, do you ever refer them to maybe check into such and such?
Because we get calls from not just hospice, right? We get calls
Right.
from hospitals or from families. Sometimes we'll have to suggest they talk to High Peaks instead of community, or they talk to one of the other hospices around. We also have a good relationship with the other comfort care homes. There are 2 in Saratoga, one besides us. So
Okay.
Mary's Haven. There's another one in Scotia Glenville called Joan Nicole Prince. And then the 4th one is up in Granville. So if we know that somebody is better suited to one of those areas, or they might have an opening, then we'll refer them to one of those other homes.
Well, that's neat. That's great. That's I'm sure that's a benefit to families too.
Sure it is.
But I'll tell you, if I have to go, I would, ultimately would want to go to hospice or Gateway. I live up here, but it's got to be so much more helpful for somebody to be in their own house.
I think it's almost everyone's desire. And sometimes the mind and the body are not in the same place.
Right.
And often we find that someone's been worried and struggling and what's going to happen, and they get to our house and they're like, oh, finally, I can rest. The family says, thank you for caring for my loved one, because now I don't have to worry. I don't have to worry about them falling or not getting the food that they need or their meds on time. And so we bring this sense of peace, and that's part of our name and that's part of our mission.
Okay. Let's do some frequently asked questions. We'll do some of that. And then I want to get into some of the fundraising things that you do, and then we'll get into the packet, because there's a lot of questions and answers that we can go off into on that, and I want to make sure we get time to talk about that. We talked about what hospice care means and how long, and again, there's no cost.
Correct. That's just it's a surprise to everyone all the time.
It is. We talked last year on the show, and I must have passed over my head because I couldn't believe it. I mean, that's not the norm today.
No,
you're amazing.
Yeah, it's there is a cost to us to provide this service, right?
Oh yeah.
We run the house and we staff it, and there's all the household things and the business things, but there's no expense to the people who come to us. We want that right off the top. We don't want them to ever worry about it.
So you are the head angel over there. You really are. You had said the house is staffed 24/7 by skilled and dedicated volunteers and paid staff. What do they have to do to qualify to be in that setting?
The first thing is probably the biggest, is to have a desire to help in that situation. It's a very unique work environment, working with people who are close to the end. It's precious, tender time. So the desire is first. The ability to manage their emotions and their stress levels. We train people. We shadow shift them. They have to be background checked because we want to make sure that everyone is safe and able. And then after that, it's just an onboarding time. We have continuing training. We just did one on compassion care and burnout. We've done some on dementia care. So we just regularly walk alongside them as they do their job. For the most part, our volunteers and our staff work part-time, a few hours a month or a week, depending on what they have available.
I think, too, that's good because it doesn't burn them out on the compassion side.
Right.
Because a lot of, and they don't mean it, but a lot of them are hard to deal with because of what they're going through physically and mentally.
Yep.
And I think that could get to people. Even you have 100% compassion and dedication. So I think burnout is probably a good word that you used, but that they're part-time, I think, helps out a lot, too, because they can get away from this. It's not like a 8-hour day, 5-day-a-week job or whatever.
Our staff work 4-hour shifts.
Okay.
And then there's always someone on call from our agency, and there's always someone on call from hospice if they ever need it. So they're not, even though they may be alone, they're not left to their own.
Okay, that's great. Visiting hours. I have a loved one in Gateway, and do I have a certain time period that I can go visit?
That is a great question. And guess what? We're always open because your schedule may not allow you to come, during visiting hours. So you want to come at dinner time or you want to come at 11 o'clock at night. We're always up. And if your loved one is willing to take visitors, a lot of times their days and nights are mixed up, and 2 o'clock in the morning is fine for them. You just give us a call and we'll let you in, and there you go. So we don't ever want to separate people.
Here again, that shows your your care for the family too, because that's important to the family member.
It is. We had one person come from a facility who wasn't able to share Thanksgiving with their mother. And on the flip side of that, the old Bryan Inn, I'm giving a plug there.
Yeah, Steve Sullivan.
They gave 14 meals to a family who was at Gateway House over Thanksgiving last year. And it was her last Thanksgiving, and she had 14 family members there who didn't have to worry about what's to cook and where to stay and all those things. They get to share that meal together because of the generosity of the community support.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's so important to the person, too. I had a good friend that I worked with at Holiday Inn, where I grew up in Gloversville, Johnstown area, and she was a waitress, and she had 2 small children, was on her own, and we got to be really good friends. And when my wife and I moved up here, she had gotten brain cancer. She was only probably in her, I'm going to say 50 maybe. So she ended up moving down to Georgia to live with one of her daughters. Well, she came up here, had a house on the lake in Mayfield, and to sell the house. And it was a week before Thanksgiving, so she had her Thanksgiving then with her kids. So I called and said, can I take you out to lunch? And knowing that I probably wouldn't see her again because she was going back down south, and she had a kerchief on. And I says, take your kerchief off. And she goes, Rick, no, I don't look nice. I said, Fran, you're beautiful. You're beautiful as 20 years ago when I met you. And we went out, and we were at a restaurant. We stayed 4 hours talking. That meant more to me because she passed away probably 2 months later. But just that compassion that you show people makes them feel so good.
Sure.
You know. And
it does. And it was a gift to be able to offer that to the family. And on top of that, or in addition to that, all of our staff will shift their working hours so that someone else, if they need the time. In fact, a couple of us board members came in and sat with the residents so that the family didn't have to stay and our staff didn't have to be there. And so I got to spend some time with this particular resident just visiting. It was fun.
That's awesome. It is. It's just, I don't know. It's a tough part of life, but you like to make the person, feel peaceful.
Oh, it was, we had a hairdresser come in. We had a manicurist come in. She was all dolled up. This was a treat for her, and it was just as much fun for us.
That's neat. Well, let's talk about the packet, and then I want to get into the fundraising and the gift shop, unless you want to do that first and close up.
I will give a shout out quickly that we have the yard sale will be in September.
Right.
And that people can start bringing in donations for the yard sale from September 13th through September 22nd.
Okay.
Just so that I don't forget it, because this conversation that we want to talk about, I think could last weeks.
Yes. Oh, I know. It'll last into another show in the fall.
There you go. Too. That's it.
But again, donations and yard sales and the thrift shop.
The thrift shop, right.
All, you need the money.
Everything that the thrift shop sells, they're all donated items. They're at 404 Geyser Road. Mm-hmm. Everything that comes in directly supports this free care that we give. And they know that what they're doing might look like thrifting, but it really is gifting.
Yes, it is. It's amazing. And I know you moved next door, so you're not far from where you were on Geyser Road. The only thing is that you don't accept, because people try to get rid of everything that, they don't. TVs, computers, books, cribs, children's car seats, entertainment centers, large appliances, mattresses, medical supplies, hutches and armoires, suitcases, bedding, and clothes. I mean, that's pretty sensible not to accept.
Part of it is, for instance, mattresses can't be sold in New York State.
Right.
Right, for sanitary reasons.
Exactly.
A lot of it is space. We have a small space, so we can't take some of those things. And then, on the other hand, SAIL, Southern Adirondack Independent Living, uses and needs all of those medical things. So we can suggest that you go there with that, right?
Sure. And things that you do accept are household items, jewelry, home decorations, clean toys, upholstered furniture. Now that's got to be approved by the thrift shop. Lamps, clean kitchenware, antiques, collectibles, pictures, small appliances, purses, and tools. And the thing is, if you have these things, you're donating it to an organization that uses those donations to provide the level of care that you would want for your loved one free of charge.
Exactly right. That's exactly right.
So no matter how nice something is, donate it. Don't think you have to have a used, puppet toy. Oh, I'm going to get rid of that to do.
Well, and we do actually get some new things because people have two of something, or they have something that they thought they wanted and then they don't.
Right.
And the nice gift of that is not only does it support our work, it gives something to someone who couldn't afford it otherwise, right?
Exactly.
They get a great price on the things that they buy there.
That's right, and it means a lot to them also.
It means a lot to them, and it keeps things out of the refuse, right?
Exactly.
It's no more in the the landfill.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no. So it's benefiting. You have something nice you're donating. It's benefiting two people.
Yeah,
your
exactly
organization
right.
and the person that buys it.
That's right,
so
exactly.
You're gifting someone without it. All right, let's get to this plan because it's awesome. It's called Your Conversation Starter Guide.
Yep.
Now, can you get this on the website? I wasn't sure. I know you had sent it to me.
I sent it to you, and I can... I haven't figured out if I can put a link to that on my website, but I want to, because the idea is to have some of those difficult conversations you were just talking about. They call it upstream, right?
Okay.
Up before they're trauma-induced.
Okay.
And it is a free PDF, so it's available. I'm sure I can put the link out there.
Yeah, I'm sure because it's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think every family probably should have this and put it away for starting the discussion and then keeping it and adding to it.
Correct. Things change.
As you go along.
Your attitude changes, your circumstances changes.
Oh, sure.
But having the beginning of a conversation and the ease of a template will make it more productive.
Yep. The introduction here is, we can't plan everything, but we can talk about what is most important in our life and in our health care with those who matter most. And like you said, I don't think it's ever too early. When I think if you're young, you don't think about this. But when you have kids, you always worry about what if something happens to me, what's going to happen.
And I think there's an added benefit to this is just the idea of thinking, well, what do I value? Me, myself. What's important to me? I mean, if I were at 20 thinking about that, sure, it's different than if I'm at 60.
Sure.
But it's good to get your mind into focus about these really important things to yourself.
Yeah. Because I think the reason why is, excuse me, I think the reason why is when you're 30 and married with, let's say, 2 children, you're not worrying about what could happen 50, 60 years ahead of time. But I think if you start planning a few things, the older you get, like you said, your perspective changes on life and different things. And when you get older, you don't want to have so much information to sit down and talk with somebody about. So if you can fill this out and update it as you go along, as you get older, because the older you get, nobody wants to think about dying.
No, then it gets closer, right?
I'll be 73, and I don't even want to think about it. You know what I mean? Because I feel like I'm 50, but that's, But so let's start out and talking about the steps. And we can go step one with think about what matters the most to you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I think you made a point about getting caught up in the activities of your life. You've got kids, or you've got a job, or you've got school. And what this question does is allows you the space to stop, right? What does matter? I mean, if you asked me, what does a good day look like to you?
Yeah.
I would say on some days sitting at the beach and enjoying myself. On other days, it would be having a family card party. So listing those things, what are the places in your life that make you joyful?
Mm-hmm. So that, I mean, right, what does a good day look for you at the point that you're starting this? And that could be updated maybe in 10 years.
Sure. And some
whatever.
days it's just getting up and having coffee.
You bet. Some days that's about it. I think the next step, which is great here because is what or who supports you during difficult times. And that too may change.
Sure. It's going to be, and it'll be different for everyone, right?
Yeah.
So my husband and my nieces and nephews, or my church, they all are supports for me. But so is my running community.
Yeah.
That is not, those are not the same answers from my husband.
Yeah. Well, no, and I mean, let's face it, if your spouse or a good friend supports you during difficult times in your life, I mean, you talk and it makes you feel better or whatever, and they pass away.
Yeah.
Well, and you've gotten someone else in your life that is, that you have that relationship with. You want to put that down. So if a family member needs information, they know who to call to get together.
Well, right. And it's nice for you to think of those extra avenues of support. Sometimes married couples get tied up in one another, and then you've seen it, I'm sure. When one passes, the other one's ready to go.
Oh, yeah.
And yet, if we've had this discussion, who supports you, you can already hang a respite on a few other people. Say,
sure.
Oh, this is my friend. Oh, this is a person I like to have coffee with.
Yeah.
Or this is my wine drinking buddy.
Yeah. Well, your children are always there, but they may not be the ones to want to talk about this with, because I'm sure they don't want to see you go through a tough time. And you don't want to show them that you're not independent, that they are now the ones that are your boss,
right,
not that you're their boss anymore, Now, this is a neat one here. What matters to me statement. And that's pretty awesome.
Try finishing the sentence. What matters to me through the end of my life is, I mean, a lot of people would say, I want to leave a legacy, right? Yeah. I want to leave things to my kids. And then, so that's what your sentence ends with. But if we have a conversation and you find out your kids don't want your stuff.
Yeah, I know.
So that opens up another avenue of conversation.
Sure.
Like, Dad, I don't really want your golf paraphernalia. I really want another lunch out with you, or you can talk about those things.
Sure, and donate the golf clubs.
Yes,
to Gateway
that's right.
House.
That's it exactly.
I mean,
Perfect.
That's the way to do it. And there's a section in step 2 is to plan your talk.
Yeah.
And it gives you a scale of, well, here it's 1 to 5. As a patient, I'd like to know, and this one here, only the basics about my condition and my treatment, or at the opposite end, all the details about my condition and my treatment. There are people that don't want to know what's going on. Personally, I would want to know.
I would, right. And I have a husband who is a scientist, and so he's on number 5 there. Give me everything.
Yeah.
But there are folks, my mom, we talked about this, she passed from the same thing that your mom did, and 2 weeks before she passed, her pastor came, and he says, do you want to talk about these things? She's like, nope, I'm not ready.
I know.
And so it just depends on the person.
Yeah, it does. Then there's the second one is when there's a medical decision to be made, I would like to, and either my healthcare team to do what they think is best, or to have a say in every care decision. And that's a tough one.
It is, and I think it speaks to what you were talking about, being there for one of your friends. You, as a patient at this point, right, you want to have someone who knows you, who knows what you think and want, and can then, if something happens, you've been hit by the bus, right?
Yeah.
And they can stand in your place and say, no, Rick doesn't really want that. Or yes, Rick does want that.
Yeah. Had another uncle, who had found out he had lung cancer in January, and in June he was in the hospital but before he even had started his treatment, and was in a coma.
Oh, my.
And I don't even think they ever had a conversation about what to do. So my cousin, they lived in Syracuse, my cousin called me up and said, Rick, if you want to see Uncle Louie, you better come up. So after my wife was a special ed teacher, and when she got home, I told her, and she goes, let's go right up there. So we got the kids, and we drove up there, and we went in the hospital room, and he was not going to come out of the coma. So we talked to him, and I gave him a kiss on the forehead. He was my godfather too. And my aunt would not let him go. And my cousin said, Mom, you've got to let him go. And she did not want to let him go. So all through the night into the next morning, I called my cousin, and I says, what happened? And she says, we're finally talking Aunt Rose into letting him go. That really should have been talked about and done in a plan, so that he didn't have to go that long.
Right. And she didn't have that trauma of thinking that I need to make this decision now, while I'm really anxious about what's going to happen next to me and to him and to my kids.
Exactly.
How much easier it would have been to have had that conversation before he was in a coma.
Right. And know what his wish was.
Right.
And then it would have made her feel more peaceful making that decision, that's what he wanted.
Sure. What's important to him? What's a good day look like?
Right.
Does a good day look like being in the hospital in a coma?
Right.
That probably wasn't his good day.
Right. She didn't want to give him up, but that was being a little, I don't know, it's something. If I'm diagnosed with a serious illness that could shorten my life, I would prefer not know how quickly it is progressing, or my doctor's best estimation, or understand how quickly it's progressing. And I think a lot of these are from one end of the spectrum to the other. I think that's why there's only 5 steps, not 0 to 10.
Sure.
Because I think it is black and white. You either want to know or you don't want to know. But in any case, I think someone, and here again it goes back to a couple of questions before, your spouse or a good friend or your wine-drinking friend that you go out with once a week, that can give some advice. So I don't know. This is very good, because there's also notes that you can add underneath this, and because not everyone is a yes or no or a decision. I mean, I would even, I don't know. I would want to talk to a professional to get some information on, what would it look like?
Exactly.
down the
What does it
road?
look like? What am I going to feel and experience? What's the expected prognosis?
Yeah. And then it goes on. And then it's the one here is look at your previous answers. What do you notice about the kind of health care you said is right for you? I think answering each question is good, and you're thinking about that question. But then this gives you a break to go back and look at those and see what your plan you're making.
Yeah.
And is there something you really want to think a little bit more about
Right.
or change?
I was talking with a doctor, and she deals with this, and she talked to students and young people and then older people, and she said to them, so what's your plan? And they said, oh, I want to die at home. All right, well, that's a wish. What's your plan? What are the details? Who is going to answer the questions? Who's going to give you your meds? Who's going to help you to the bathroom? Those are the details
Yep.
that make it possible.
And I think that's in the next portion. Step 3 is, like you just said, start talking.
Yeah.
Who needs to know what matters to you in your health care, and where would you feel more comfortable talking? Things like
Yeah,
that,
that's
simple
just good.
things
That's
like
right.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
like can around the kitchen table, do you feel more comfortable in that relaxed setting, or in a restaurant
Right,
with
where
whoever?
It's sort of open and
Yeah.
not as charged,
What's
maybe.
that next table in back of you listening to back here? What are you doing to this poor guy?
That's right.
But here again, it goes back to a lot of what we talked about in the beginning. It always seems too soon until it's too late.
Oh, that's a great phrase. I
It
like
is.
that. Did you just make that up?
No, it's in this
Oh,
plan.
well, there you go.
It's in step 3. And I looked at, it goes along with what my friend said. I'm not afraid to die, but I don't want to. And here it always seems too soon until it's too late. People just don't want to talk about it.
Right.
But they don't know how important it is for the people they're leaving behind.
Sure. And I think that part of what I would wish for our listeners today is to be able to normalize the conversation. Because, yes, it's charged with emotion and fear and all those cultural things, but it's a reality we are all going to face in one way or another. So let's talk about it.
Exactly.
Stop the fear from controlling us.
Right.
That's my goal.
Exactly. It's part of life.
Yep.
Nobody wants to go.
Nope.
But the thing, one of the next pieces in this is that the list that you do doesn't cover everything, but you can start talking. I need your help with something.
Yeah.
Or can I have a conversation with you about, or I was thinking about what happened to whatever, and it made me realize maybe, I should sit down and talk with someone. And it can be anybody, like you said. Get a conversation going with a friend or your spouse, or, a lot of times you're sitting around watching TV, Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy.
There you go, right.
And maybe you could turn that off and talk to a person about different things. This is a great guide here, and they may get some information too and say, you know what, maybe I should start thinking about it, just to talk about it. And like we said, nobody wants to die, but it's a fact of life, and the more things that make it easier for you, your family, your friends, is going to be more beneficial. Some of the other things that you want to talk about, do you need to address or feel more prepared? Get finances or property, fill out a will if you don't have one. One of the things you had said the last time is make sure you have a healthcare proxy.
Right.
Or have a will drawn up. It's never too early to have a will drawn up.
It's not, and in reality, it's not just about what you want to do with your stuff. It's answering the questions for those who have no idea what you want to do with your stuff.
Exactly. That and, well, here, we spoke about this a little earlier. They have no idea what you want.
Right.
But have it down and talk to somebody. And I think there's professionals. You can talk to your minister or your priest, or talk to somebody in the field. Maybe get a little direction. This is great because it gives you directions on what to put in place so that someone can have this and look and see what your wishes were.
Yep.
Look and see what you want.
And, the Office of the Aging and Senior Services, they have folks that will help you to go through some of those financial steps. I talked to a friend Wednesday, and she said she's done a lot of this work, and she's told both of her kids, this is where the stuff is. She and her husband are fine. They're young. They're in their 40s. But she said, so I want you to know, she sent them a picture of where it is so they can look to see what the answers are to the questions they might have if they need to. That's
amazing. Now, and I told you in our case, our daughter's situation changed. And so we had to readjust some things. So you should be prepared for a change and, get different things set up if you need to. There's so much here to talk. I'd love to get this out to as many people as possible.
I'll get that, a link to that on our website under information. And so you can go to gatewayhouseofpeace.org.
Yep.
And you'll find that under the blog listing. I'll do that probably in the beginning of the week.
Okay, and what I'll do is I'll promote that as public service during the shows because it's such a wonderful tool that everybody should have.
All right.
Before we go, because I just want to mention that you can donate, simply text pledge or donate to 877-748-0844. You can go to gatewayhouseofpeace.org and there's ways to donate to them. They always need money because they're providing this at no cost, this care. And Maggie, I just want to thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Rick, for asking.
You're always a pleasure. And we'll have you on in the fall because this book, I'm going to answer some of these questions. And I want to
there you go. All right, good.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you have a great day.
You too.
Okay.
Bye-bye now.